For more on the story, we're joined by Ulf Laessing, an author and head of the Sahel program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Mali. Thanks so much for being with us here on France 24. So the West has largely condemned this military coup, but for countries with a military presence inside of Niger, including the U.S. and France, it's a bit more complicated. They can't just cut off relations completely, can they?
Yeah, there's every effort is being made to restore Mr. Bazoum in power, but anyway, he was under pressure because he was seen being too close, too cozy with France, with the European Union, with also the Americans. And even if now by pressure, he will be restored to power, I'm not sure he can actually return this because his credibility has been really damaged. He's been held now for 4 days by his own guards, hostage, without a single, army or police unit coming to his rescue. So while these efforts to pressure him, cutting aid, sanctions, threats, might work, he would probably return in a very weakened state.
Well, Niger is a country you're familiar with. Can you just describe what the security situation is like in the country at the moment?
Yeah, it's relatively calm, but it's always in Niger an illusion. It's one of the poorest countries of the world, where the government doesn't really exist outside the capital and maybe Agadez, the second city. But otherwise, it's a very weak state, and it doesn't take much to overthrow a government. That would be the other question. If now Mr. Bazoum gets reinstalled by international pressure or ECOWAS, can he stay in power? But because it's not very difficult to overthrow a president in Niger where you have very weak institutions.
You mentioned poverty. What about the humanitarian situation in Niger? What is life like for everyday people, and how has that played into the events of this week?
Yeah, Niger depends heavily on foreign aid, budget support. There's a huge operation from all Western donors. You find them there. It's one of the poorest countries at the bottom of every development index. And it's if all these Westerners or other Arab or other donors pull out, the situation will be more desperate. Most people, they've long given up on understanding politics. They're just trying to make ends meet.
So, in your opinion, what is next here for Niger? Where do you see this going?
I don't know. The longer this coup takes place, the more difficult it will be to remove, let alone because Mr. Bazoum is now so weak. And even this, suspension of aid or, threats by ECOWAS didn't impress other coup leaders like in Burkina Faso or in Mali. So I fear there will be more instability. Niger has been also a major partner of Europe to stop migration to Libya and to Europe. Niger lies on the main migration route. So if there's continued instability, there will be probably more migration and more instability, which eventually will affect the whole Sahel.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Ulf Laessing, author and head of the Sahel program at the Konrad Adenauer Foundation in Mali. Thanks so much for joining us here on France 24. We'll